Does static stretching actually decrease performance? We heard the claim, pre-training static stretching should be avoided because it decreases performance related to strength and power. And this sentence by Che-Ben et al. 2019 sums it up pretty well. A large body of scientific evidence has recommended not to use static stretching immediately before the performance of strength and power related activities. But when I look deeper into the research of static stretching and performance, I realize the topic is much more nuanced than people make it seem. Hi, I'm Athletic Knowledge, and today we'll discuss the complex relationship between static stretching and performance outcomes related to strength and power. What is static stretching? Static stretching is when you hold a muscle in a lengthened position for a set amount of time. The main goal of static stretching is to improve flexibility by improving a joint's range of motion. But how does it work? Researchers do not actually know what happens in the static stretching position.
Ultra deep for that super big stretch. What's happening in that deep stretch?
Researchers believe that static stretching works through both mechanical and neural adaptation. Mechanically, it reduces the muscle's resistance to being stretched, making it easier to move through greater range of motion. Neurologically, it decreases the nervous system's tendency to make the muscle contract during a stretch, allowing the muscles to relax. In short term, it improves flexibility really quickly. Over the long term, static stretching can lead to lasting improvements in range of motion by increasing stretch tolerance and potentially creating small structural changes within the muscle. The world of fitness, strength is all over the place. There's strength endurance, there's strength, absolute strength. For our definition, strength is the total amount of force that is produced. For power, we'll regard this as the rate of force development, how much force you could produce in the shortest amount of time. The proposed mechanism on why static stretching decreases performance will be broken down into two sections. One will look at the central nervous system, which is anything from the spinal cord to the brain. We'll look at the peripheral mechanisms, starting off with the central nervous system. If you hold a stretch for a long time, let's say greater than 60 seconds, your nerve sends a weaker go signal to your muscles. So your muscles don't move as strongly or as quickly as needed. To sum it up, your brain isn't sending signal hard enough for the muscles to contract fast, resulting in less explosive strength and power movement after long static stretching. This shows that static stretching for long durations, greater than 60 seconds, can change how the muscle tendon unit behave, making the muscle and the tendon more compliant, meaning it's less stiff and less stretchy. When the stiffness goes down, the muscle doesn't store and release elastic energy as well during fast movements like jumping and sprinting, reducing explosive performance. It can also change the muscle's ideal length to produce force, which makes it harder to generate maximal strength. Studies show that static stretching around 3 to 5 minutes clearly reduces muscle stiffness. And even holds like 60 seconds can cause short-term decrease in stiffness. But now here we go to the nuance. However, these effects don't really last long. Stiffness usually returns within a few minutes after stretching. My video is separated into the acute effects of static stretching and then chronic effects of static stretching and its effects on athletic performance. So let's start with acute effects. My argument on acute effects of static stretching is based on this narrative review by Che-Ben et al. 2019. This review legit starts off by, let's just say, bad-mouthing static stretching. But then this beautiful paper by Kay and Blazevich 2012 is shown, and I highly recommend you guys reading this paper. Also reading the Che-Ben et al. Paper, this is really good. And what Kay and Blazevich found is that static stretching does not automatically reduce strength and power. The key factor is duration. Found that stretching a muscle group for 60 seconds or more can decrease performance by up to 5 to 8%. However, shorter durations of 60 seconds or less show little to no negative effect on athletic performance. Therefore, static stretching can be included in a warm-up as the total stretching time is kept short, less or equal to 60 seconds. And there's some benefits to static stretching in an integrated warm-up system. Can increase flexibility and in certain sports, even though it's not strength and power from the outside, it is very important to be flexible in those sports. And there's little to no drop in performance in strength and power. And sometimes some research even shows small performance benefits. Also to mention, when static stretching is followed by a sport-specific drill, there's no negative effect on performance even after holding a stretch for a long time. It's in the article, but I'm very torn apart in should I include this or not include this. But in the article it states that static stretching may help reduce injuries, big on the may. And especially for sports that has a lot of sprinting, running, and change of directions. There's also a psychological benefit where athletes that static stretch felt more ready to perform and may actually improve their performance. But also a reminder in the study where people held the stretch for 120 seconds, which was 2 minutes per muscle group, there was a clear, very clear decrease in performance related to strength and power. So what I would advise is that for most recreational athletes, short static stretching holds less than 60 seconds, ideally 30 seconds, can be included in a warm-up without any real drop in performance. High performance athletes should be very careful when using static stretching because even small changes in strength and power can matter in competition. Test it out, stretch and see if your performance decreases. If it doesn't, hey, it's a great way to include in your performance. Listen to your coach. These are all acute effects, but how about the long-term chronic effects of static stretching and athletic performance? Well, it's much more nuanced than this, and I will summarize it by just showing my notes. Chronic stretching and performance either increases performance, decreases performance, or no changes in performance. Thank you for listening. So in this paper, it shows that static stretching constantly over time can actually improve muscle strength and power. And the biggest strength gain is tend to be shown in people who are not active. While active individuals see small improvements, maybe even no improvements, but people who sit around, stretching is a great form of exercise. It's the most no equipment needed. You could do it at home. It's quite accessible. And for high trained athletes, the chronic effects are very, very, very unclear, very unclear. Studies also suggest that women and older adults may experience greater improvements in strength and power from long-term stretching programs. Finally, flexibility improvements are generally greater with passive static stretching, and larger gain occurs when people perform more stretching repetitions and spend more time stretching over the course of a program.
In conclusion, short duration under 60 seconds has little to no negative effects. Performance drop is seen in longer durations greater than 60 seconds. Stretching over time can be beneficial to certain people. And lastly, use it wisely and carefully. Thank you all for listening and have a great day.